Now we want to continue our work with solving some application problems, and our first problem is an interest problem. Tyler has two savings accounts that his grandparents opened for him. The two accounts pay 10% and 12% interest in annual interest. There's $500 more in the account that pays 12% than there is in the other account. If the total interest for the year is $214, how much money does he have in each account? So I've set up a little table here, and my two columns I have the dollars at 10% and the dollars at 12%, because that's what I'm given in the problem, 10% and 12% for the amount of interest that's earned in the two accounts. Then I've got two rows here, one for the number and one for the value. So I'm going to have the number of dollars and also the value of the dollars. So first of all, let's see. We have money in two accounts, and there is $500 more in the account that pays 12% than there is in the other account. So let's start by letting X be equal to the number of dollars that he has invested at 10%. Now I know that he has $500 more invested at 12%, so the number of dollars over here will be X plus 500. Now let me just check the screen, make sure that didn't go off. Okay, good. Now, as far as the value of the dollars go, these X dollars that are invested at 10% have a value of 10% of X. That is, that's the amount of money they're going to earn in interest. So the interest earned, which is the same as the value of those dollars, is going to be 0.10 times X. So 10% of the amount invested at 10% is the amount of interest earned at 10%. Now I have X plus $500 invested at 12%, so if I take 12% of this, I'll have the amount of money that's earned in interest in that account. So 0.12 times X plus 500. So here is the amount of interest earned in the one account plus the amount of interest earned in the other account, and I know that that has to add up to $214. So let's move the camera so that I have room to write an equation. So I'm going to say the amount of money earned in interest in this account, which is 0.10x, plus the amount of money that's earned in interest in this account, 0.12 times X plus 500, has to come out to be the total amount of interest earned on the account, which is going to be $214. So here I have an equation that describes everything that I have so far in the problem. This equation right here describes the situation in the problem. Let's go ahead and use our distributive property and multiply. Let's say I have 0.10x plus 0.12 times x is 0.12x plus 0.12 times 500. When I do that multiplication on a calculator, I end up with 60, and that's equal to 214. Okay, I can simplify a little further here. 0.10 plus 0.12 is going to be 0.22x plus 60 is equal to 214. Okay, now I want to add negative 60 to both sides. Okay, we got the camera moved up, thank you. I'll add negative 60 to both sides here and get 0.22x is equal to 214 subtract 60 is going to be 154. Now I'll divide both sides by 0.22 and I'll end up with x is equal to 700. So let's bring that up over here. I have x is equal to 700, so I have $700 invested at 10%, and then I have $500 more than that, or 700 plus 500 is 1,200, invested at 12%. So you can see on this problem what I've done is I've drawn this table or filled in this table right here to help me sort of organize my work. I've divided the table into two sort of rows here, the number of dollars, and then I look at the value or the interest on the dollars. From the interest on the dollars, I was able to write a nice equation. I solved the equation, x is equal to 700. That tells me that $700 is invested at 10%, and so I add 500 to that and get the amount of money that's invested at 12%. The interest problems that you're going to work in this section all pretty similar to this. Let's look at a problem that involves geometry. The smallest angle in a triangle is 1/5 as large as the largest angle. The third angle is twice the smallest angle. Find the three angles. So I'm going to start this problem by drawing a triangle that I'm going to use to label the variables for this problem. Now, it's okay that this triangle isn't accurate. I'm just using it so I can draw some labels in. So I think what I'm going to do is say this. Okay, the smallest angle is 1/5 as large as the largest angle. Let's let x be the smallest angle. And I'll just use that little symbol for angle. So let x be equal to the smallest angle. Okay, if that's true, then the smallest angle is 1/5 as large as the largest angle. Well, if the smallest angle is 1/5 as large as the largest angle, then the largest angle must be 5 times as big as the smallest angle. So if x is the smallest angle, let's say this is the largest one, that's going to be 5x. And then I have the third angle is twice the smallest angle, so that will be 2x. So there's a lot of different ways I could do this problem. I could let x be equal to the largest angle. If I did that, this would be x, and then the smallest angle would be 1/5 x. But doing it the way I'm doing it here, I avoid using fractions. Maybe you want to do that too. Let's see if we can write an equation. The third angle is twice the smallest angle, so I have that. The 2x, I just filled that in. Okay, the sum of the angles in any triangle is always 180 degrees. So x plus 5x plus 2x must be equal to 180 degrees. So let me add up x plus 5x plus 2x. That should give me 8x equals 180 degrees. Okay, I divide both sides by 8, or I multiply both sides by 1/8, and I'll end up with x is equal to 22.5 degrees. So multiplying both sides by 1/8, x is equal to 22.5 degrees. Now what I have to do is go back and find the other angles. If x is 22.5, then 5x is going to be 5 times that. Okay, I'll do that on my calculator. 5 times 22.5 comes out 112.5 degrees. And then 2 times x is going to be 2 times 22.5, which should be 45 degrees. So let's check and see, is that right? 45 degrees, right. Now if I add 22.5, 112.5, and 45 degrees, you'll see what I end up with is 180 degrees. So here's my three angles, 22.5, 112.5, and 45. And 1/5 of 112.5 is 22.5, so the smallest angle is 1/5 as large as the largest angle, and then twice the smallest angle is the third angle, and they add up to 180 degrees. So that satisfies all the requirements of what I was given in this problem. Now again, I've drawn this little triangle right here. It's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be accurate. I'm just using it so I have somewhere to write down my variables and expressions that represent those angles.